Today I have some exciting news from our sponsors. Star Trek Warp, the brand new upcoming collectible card game that covers every era of the franchise with PvE and PvP deck building strategic goodness. Available to wishlist now with the links below, and all just in time for the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. Rather fittingly, the decks are built on your favourite legendary ships from the shows and movies, with each one determining your health, deck size, and bringing special powers for you to deploy. The cards themselves are made up from hundreds of key characters and locations for you to collect, and each has their own special effects to mix and match as you build your deck to battle with. These battles can be taking on other people in casual or ranked PvP matches, or challenge your deck building skill against PvE scenarios with limitations to overcome. If this tickles your fancy, then wishlist Star Trek Warp on Steam now, using the link in the description and pinned comment below. Star Trek has a number of cool features it either did first or that remain fairly unique to it. The biggest one of these is the iconic Federation starship design style, and part of that is the special feature of saucer separations. This is used to amp up the cool factor during emergencies and special moments, but has also led to some slightly baffling choices, all of which we'll be going over in today's Spacedock video. So, saucer separations. Generally a cool moment when it happens because it's such a sparingly used feature of Starfleet vessels, though the concept is not without its flaws, which we'll get into later. For now we're sticking to the upsides, like how unique it is. It's one of those special things that's generally only really a Star Trek thing, partly down to the way that Federation ships are designed with very distinct sections. There's the occasional time it's sort of used in other franchises, and I'm sure you could argue that vehicles that combine together are similar, but clearly not the same. Now, while I do have some issues with the way saucer separation is meant to be used, the times it's done in an emergency are always fantastic. It turns what is already a dramatic moment into a proper event, and even makes a good degree of sense given how powerful and dangerous the drive sections of these ships are. You really don't want to be near out-of-control antimatter in a warp core, though for this issue specifically there's also warp core ejection, but hey, multiple layers of safety precautions is a good thing. And saucer separation can be used in many other emergency situations that aren't related to the warp core. It is an odd idea though, isn't it? Because deliberately splitting your ship in half is not really a real thing outside of James Bond. Maybe trains and trucks count, but those are more modular, which is something else. The only proper vehicle type that genuinely splits apart is rockets, which have stage separation as a matter of efficiency. And really, this makes total sense for why separations were mentioned in the original series as being a possibility. It literally was the space race at the time, and the Enterprise is a space ship, so why not include the possibility? The difference between rockets and the Enterprise is the separation of the latter was originally only meant to be in those emergencies mentioned earlier. It was unfortunately never used in the original series due to budget constraints, and following projects also never got the chance to show it until it was integrated into the Galaxy class for the next generation. And that's where the problems start. Saucer separation has gone from an emergency feature into a key part of the ship and how it's meant to be operated. This is centered on how the Galaxy class has lots of civilians aboard for its long-term missions, so needing to get to them away from harm is a priority. Why you have civilians aboard a ship that can frequently get into existential danger from weird anomalies and angry aliens, forcing you to design the ship to be able to get them out of that danger you put them in, is anyone's guess. But hey, they did, and the engineering section, or star drive, is the real part of the ship that can hold its own in battle all by itself if you need it to. It even has a special battle bridge just for that purpose. If you squinted it sideways, then yeah, splitting the ship kind of makes sense. But look at it head on and it doesn't anymore, because it presumes you will always know ahead of time that you need to do it to get the civilians to safety, which isn't always going to be the case. Imagine this. You're commanding a Galaxy class and you're unexpectedly drawn into a tense showdown with the Romulans in the neutral zone. You're barely managing to keep things calm with diplomacy, but there's a very real chance that things could escalate to the point where weapons are fired. Do you detach your saucer section to get the civilians out of harm's way, which will tip off the Romulans that you're preparing for combat and make everything worse, or do you do nothing, meaning the whole feature is utterly pointless? This scenario is reflected pretty often often in the actual show because, just like with the original series, budgetary constraints meant it was cheaper to just not bother. Even in Deep Space Nine, when they'd switched over to CG and setting up FX shots was a bit easier, we never see any of the upgunned Galaxy classes in the Dominion War flying around without their saucer section. So again, the feature is either forgotten about or deliberately ignored. Another problem with saucer separation, despite there being plenty of good reasons for it to exist, is that it ended up inviting expansions on the idea that are questionable at best. Of course I mean Prometheus here, which actually does look cool in its default state. It's got this aggressive profile and special pointy arrowhead saucer rather than a saucer-shaped saucer, and 4 warp nacelles. It looks like a powerful, advanced warship, exactly the sort of thing a post-Borg, post-Dominion War Starfleet would be looking into creating in case something else horrible shows up. But then it splits into 3 parts, and the cool visuals all immediately get thrown out the window because each part looks goofy as hell by itself, especially when the saucer pops out its own teeny tiny mini nacelles, because yeah, that part too is a fully fledged starship. All of this is due to something called multi-vector assault mode, which sounds like the sort of thing you'd see on the side of a kid's toy box. The idea here is that the 3 parts of the Prometheus can all work together to attack an enemy from every angle at once, evenly spreading damage out over a target's shield sections rather than concentrating it all in one place. So that already seems a little questionable, but given how Star Trek's combat is hardly ever consistent in the first place, yeah, whatever, go for it. My real issue with this whole crazy idea, though, is if each part of a Prometheus is its own ship with its own warp core and own nacelles, why not just use 3 normal ships that can do other things outside of combat? Why do they have to join together at all? Because of the multi-vector special mode? You can just do that with networking ships together. Oh god, no, wait, that was a bad idea. Another bad idea that might have come out of ship separations is the Defiant's nose. Now, I don't know how canon this is, and it certainly never happened on screen, but the little front section that contains the deflector dish could supposedly fire off as a giant torpedo as a weapon of last resort. And like, why? What possible point could there be to this? Kinetic energy by itself is going to be worthless with Trek's tech level, and you could just fire the photon torpedoes that make up the warhead of this insane idea. The last one is definitely more of a love it or hate it thing, which is the entire design style of 32nd century ships. To be fair though, this is hard to say if it's even related to saucer separations instead of disconnected floaty parts just being a stereotype of super advanced technology. Interestingly, the Academy class does actually combine the 2 ideas together, and really this is just the same concept as the Galaxy class again. I don't really see the point of having the ship's saucer detach and land at the Academy as part of it when you can just have a building and beam up to a ship. So that's another separation to chuck onto the dubious utility pile. There is a third type of separation beyond those dubious ones and the good emergency ones. The awesome inventive separation, done for some clever plot reason and used to solve a problem in the episode. I think most recently this was done in Strange New Worlds by baiting these disabling grabby things into disabling the ship they're attached to. Discovery had a good one too in the show's finale, where splitting the ship let it use its spore drive on another vessel. A really good one is something we mentioned in a recent video on space tactics, which is in the Next Generation, where the 2 parts of the Enterprise worked together using unexpected tactics to confuse the Borg to rescue Picard from them. All of these are smart uses of a ship's feature in a way that wasn't intended but works anyway and is satisfying to see. So, while saucer separations are undoubtedly a very cool idea, and certainly have their place in emergencies, it's when the feature is used more routinely that it starts making less sense. It's also very easy to overdo it while trying to be fancy, and ending up having the opposite effect where it feels lame. In short, it's a rare and special feature that's best used sparingly.
Get this crap out of here.
You can support Spacedock by joining our Patreon, where you can get our frigate, fighter and carrier design reference books, as well as 1 week early access to upcoming videos. Thanks to our supporters, and thank you for watching.